New York. La da da dum 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 dum. Oh, hey YouTube. We're getting ready to get started. Um, I am just setting up one last thing here. And if you're oh, hey YouTube. That's what I needed to get. All right, so we're getting ready to get started. If you want to skip, I would say skip about 2 minutes in, and you would get past all of the introductions, etc., etc., etc. So let's rock and roll.
And here we go.
It's the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is
not merely peace in our time, but peace in all time.
I have no fear whatsoever of anybody or anything.
Did you think no one was watching?
Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
your mission.
Suppose we go where no man has gone before.
To reclaim the American dream,
To be given the right of human beings
To be afforded equal rights and equal opportunities.
by any means necessary.
It's the Benjamin Dixon Show. If you're hearing his voice, you're hearing the voice of reason.
you certainly come to the right place.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Benjamin Dixon Show. I am your host, Benjamin Dixon. It is Wednesday, November 25th, 2015. Tomorrow is Thanksgiving. Definitely looking forward to some holiday festivities. Bear with me one second while I figure out why my microphone sounds so muffled today, more so than usual. Let me just do a little EQ here and there. Today, I'm going to be joined by H.A. Goodman. He's going to give us some updates on Bernie Sanders. And as we track and follow along Bernie Sanders' endorsement by Killer Mike this week in Atlanta, which was kind of exciting. I also want to just really kind of plug and play. There's a couple of clips from Fox News that I just have to play and kind of respond to. Let me turn this volume down here. But before Hal comes on, I have to play what I think is probably one of the greatest attack ads that I've seen in a very long time. And this is on the Republican end. This is an attack ad from John Kasich attacking the Donald Trump. Listen in.
I would like anyone who is listening to consider some thoughts that I paraphrase from the words of German pastor Martin Niemöller. You might not care if Donald Trump says Muslims must register with their government because you're not one. And you might not care if Donald Trump says he's going to round up all the Hispanic immigrants because you're not one. And you might not care if Donald Trump says it's okay to rough up black protesters because you're not one. And you might not care if Donald Trump wants to suppress journalists because you're not one. Now think about this. If he keeps going and he actually becomes president, he might just get around to you. And you better hope that there's someone left to help you.
All the dramatic music. This is great. Paid for by Kasich for America. This is.
He's not a war hero.
Yeah. Shut up, Trump. That was awesome. that was awesome on so many levels. I think so. I think my kids must have come in here and messed with my microphone because it sounds really muffled, but I'm just going to go with it. It is what it is. That was an awesome ad from John Kasich. Let me applaud him again because that was that was wonderful, wonderfully done. And actually, I think okay, there we go. Okay, so he's paraphrasing that the essentially it wasn't a poem, but it has a poem feel to it, right? But basically, how long will Republicans ignore the ridiculousness, the proto-fascism, the blatant nativism, the blatant racism, I mean, how long can the reasonable conservatives? Because I do believe, even though I give conservatives a hard time, there are some reasonable conservatives. Maybe not many, maybe just a handful. I don't know, but how long can the reasonable people ignore Donald Trump and his behavior? The problem is, it's not that the reasonable people are ignoring him. It's that there's so many unreasonable people who are buying into him. And so there's really nothing that the quote unquote, the reasonable conservative is kind of like the good cop, right? It's like a unicorn. Where are they? Right. But I digress. The point is, there are so many people, so many Republicans who buy into the ridiculousness of Donald Trump. They feed off of it. They thrive off of it because he plays to the very base of, he plays to the lowest common denominator of us all, and of them at least. And so it's amazing to me that he's gotten this far with open, transparent, blatant, unabashed racism, misogyny, I mean, xenophobia. The only people he even attacked black people. The only people I don't think I've seen him attack yet are gays and lesbians. I wonder how that would go. I wonder how that would go if he attacked them. I think that is the best ad of the political season, because it's not going to help John Kasich win, mind you. He's not going to win. But I'm hoping that John Kasich can burn the house down on his way out. Just take Trump down with him. And actually, I don't know. So here's the thing. I feel that it would be good for the Republican Party. It'd be good for them in a sarcastic, negative way if they actually nominate Donald Trump. I think it'll be good for them. They deserve that. That's what they should get that, because for 40 plus years since Richard Nixon, the Republicans have been playing to the lowest common denominator. They've been playing the Southern strategy. They've been playing the hell out of that card, right? They are the masters of dog whistling, racist jargon, racist terminology, and playing to that bigoted gene that is in so many Americans. They've mastered doing that without ever having them come out publicly. And they've been able to build this big tent around the racist, nativist, xenophobic, less educated, rabid right is what I'm going to start calling them. Instead of the religious right, I'm calling them the rabid right, because they're just ridiculously foaming at the mouth for the type of vitriol that comes from Donald Trump. So, but for 40 years, they've been able to play to that base without ever letting that base take over their party, because they always had the establishment, and the establishment was always able to excuse me. The establishment was always able to keep those people at bay, because the establishment was a certain type of Rockefeller style looking or acting and talking Republican and conservative along the lines of pseudo thinkers. George H.W. was a smart man. He was not a dumb man. I can't speak for his son W. But Ronald Reagan was a sharp man, even though, he was old and he didn't have all of his faculties. He was not a bumbling buffoon who was a caricature of a human being. He was a politician. He was an actor. Richard Nixon was a brilliant man. Richard Nixon was brilliant, but somewhat nefarious. They had some thinkers who were able to keep the ridiculous right, the rabid right, the misogynistic, the homophobic, xenophobic. They were able to, the straight out racist, they were able to keep them at bay. I'm gonna have to do a Marco Rubio here in a minute. I'm gonna have to pull a Marco Rubio and get some water, damn it. But now they've run into the reality of, they have a politician who has found his base, And that base is so strong. That base is the ridiculous Republicans. That base is the ridiculous, rabid, racist, xenophobic. I mean, the people who are excited about Donald Trump's fascism because they love someone who's not politically correct, right? Oh, you know, it's great that we have someone. He's so real. He keeps it real. Yeah, real fascist. He does a great job at that. And the problem for the establishment is that they have built the Republican base and sustained the Republican Party for almost 40 years off of the votes of these bigots. And now Donald Trump is allowing them to come into the limelight. Donald Trump is allowing them to come out of the darkness. And so now all of the status quo establishment Republicans are looking at each other like, how in the hell do we stop this? The problem is you can't stop it. You really can't stop it because you created it. This is your Frankenstein. This is your monster. You created it. You are the reason Donald Trump is possible is because you've been laying these seeds since Richard Nixon. You've been laying these seeds of dog whistles, Southern strategy, playing to the lowest common denominator, playing to the fears, playing to the xenophobia, playing to that part that is so easy for all of us to fall into if we don't rise above that very base nature. And Republicans have been playing to it so long that it has become a solid block. It has become a solid 25%. What was it? What is it this week? 28%. It has become a solid block in the Republican Party, and Donald Trump has capitalized on it. So as wonderful as this commercial is, I think it's brilliant. I actually want to play it again. I might play it again at the end of the show just for shits and giggles, right? As wonderful as that is, it really doesn't make any difference because the people who love Donald Trump, they love him, including his proto-fascism. They love him, including his bigotry and his blatant racism. All right, folks, I want you to join the conversation. 857-600-0518. I finally got my throat cleared. I'll be joined shortly by Hal H.A. Goodman. He's a contributor to a lot of different outlets. I think everyone from Huffington Post, just across the board. It's just a lot of people that he's a contributor for. Let me see if there's any. All right, so while we wait on him, I'm going to move on to another video. But let's see. I don't want to do Bill O'Reilly yet. I kind of want to say Bill O'Reilly towards the end. I want to say Bill O'Reilly because Bill O'Reilly had this panel on last night. And because of the news of Laquan McDonald, because of how blatantly obvious it was. Now, unfortunately, it's not blatantly obvious to everyone, right? But even if Fox News, it's kind of blatantly obvious. And so they can't outright talk about that story, because if they outright talk about that story, then they would have to actually fix their mouths to say that a police officer unjustly killed a black person, right? So instead of talking about that, Bill O'Reilly did exactly what Republicans do. This is why Donald Trump is so successful. Bill O'Reilly went directly to playing the fear card and criminalizing black people. And he made an entire segment out of it. And I want to deal with that before we leave today. Definitely want to address that because it's laughable in its transparency, right? They're not even trying to hide the dog. They're not even dog whistling anymore, right? They're using a blowhorn with their outright racism. I'm going to have to get a water here. We'll take a break in a minute, but caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and or question? Caller, you're here on the air live now. What's your name, comment, and or question?
Hello, Bud.
Yes.
Yeah, I just called. I didn't know I got in that fast.
Oh yeah, no, you got in. You're the first caller on the hour. How's it going, man?
Hey, I'm doing good. Listen, first of all, you're doing a good job. I want to say that real quick.
Thanks, man.
I just started following you a couple of months ago and listening to your show. Now let's get on to something.
All right, let's get to it.
I have a Republican friend of mine. She listens to those Republican talk shows, and I couldn't help to hear one of the guys talk about certain things that you and I would talk about, as far as like with Hillary Clinton, like being the Republicans really not disliking her as they really claim to be. And they're kind of like, I remember the Cheneys, for example, saying how that she is not as bad as Obama.
Right.
And then Dick Cheney said also that, that those between Rand Paul and Hillary Clinton, he had to go to Hillary Clinton. So my point is, why is it so hard to get that message out there? I mean, it seems like people still are drinking her Kool-Aid, and that's what's frustrating to me. I mean, it's clear. Even if you don't really like Bernie, you shouldn't. I mean, not to mention what she did to Obama when she ran.
Right.
I never forgave her the little many things she did. With the Muslim thing, a lot of people don't know
that started with
the
her.
Muslim thing with Genesis with her. So it's a frustrating thing. Why do you think that is? I mean, is it because of the Clinton thing, or I hate this label, the first black president? Why is it so hard to get people to see what Hillary Clinton really is, what she represents politically?
I mean, honestly, it's a combination of all those things. I think the most obvious thing is that she has political power. They have a machine that has been in place for over 20 years. And once you have that type of political power, you have people who want to get in on that power. And so they're able to buy politicians by the dozens, not with literal money in all cases. And a lot of times it's just a wink and an eye saying that I'm going to put you on when I get elected, I'm going to put you in this position, or I'll put you over this, or I'll give you this cabinet position. People want that political power, and they're afraid. You'll realize how many black politicians, when Obama ran in 2007, 2008, a lot of them went to Hillary Clinton originally because they didn't think Barack Obama had a chance of winning. It's not that they didn't want to support him. They probably would have loved to support him out the bat, but they had to ride the coattails. They believed that they could ride Hillary Clinton's coattails all the way to a cabinet position. And so a lot of them sold out. And because of that, they didn't get any positions with Barack Obama. And that's the political game. So now everyone is hedging their bet again. Everyone is hedging their bet, and they're believing that Hillary Clinton is going to be the winner. And so they wouldn't dare take a chance on someone else. Now, this trickles down to the voters, because most people, if they're not engaged in politics on the level that you and I and everyone else may be engaged, most people will absolutely take the advice or listen to and take the lead of their political leader, or their pastor, or even their granddaddy or their uncle, whoever is following the news on their behalf. So I think it's a combination of all those things. And listen, I appreciate you calling in. I've got my guest who just came in the room, and I want him, he's going to speak on it even more. So
no problem.
You got a follow-up question? All right. Yeah.
No, I just my first time calling in. I usually send you shout outs on Twitter, but I'll keep up the great work, and I'll keep listening.
Hey man, appreciate it. Definitely appreciate it. Thanks, first time caller, long time supporter. I really appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right, Hal, let me do some things. I got my guest in the room here, ladies and gentlemen. Hal Goodman is here, and I just need to take him off of mute so you guys can hear him. 1 second here. Hal, how's it going this morning? This afternoon?
Really good. Thank you. Thank you very much for having me on.
Hey, man, I'm glad to be here. You came in at a perfect time. My caller was just talking about Hillary Clinton and why people are still drinking her Kool-Aid. And I brought you on to talk about Bernie Sanders and this endorsement from Killer Mike and everything else that's going on. So I'm just going to turn it over to you. What do you want my audience to know about the race right now?
Well, actually, first off, I want to touch upon something that your caller said. The caller just now, the first-time caller, and he's absolutely right. He's 100% correct. Basically, people are drinking the Kool-Aid for a number of reasons, primarily because, unfortunately, in our country, we don't care about two things in aggregate. One is perpetual wars. So she voted for the Iraq War in 2005. She then visited Iraq and said the insurgency is failing. Then she pushed for the bombing of Libya, caused a tremendous civil war in Libya. She still has neoconservative advisors. That's in the New York Times. That's in The Nation, a whole bunch of publications. That's not just me saying that.
Right.
People still don't, I mean, if you don't like Dick Cheney, you're not going to vote for Hillary Clinton. So in terms of foreign policy, the president has the authorization for use of military force. That means that the president can go ahead and bomb and send troops anywhere that he or she wants. So I do not trust Hillary Clinton as president in terms of the unit. Yeah, exactly. Now that ties into the racial justice aspect of things, and I think that your caller was 100% right. Why do people still trust Hillary Clinton, even though the polls say 57% of Americans do not trust her? Unfortunately, a lot of people don't see the connection between the Iraq War and the militarization of police. And so when you have perpetual wars, that gear, all of that surplus military equipment, it's not only going to make the country more aggressive, more militant, but police departments are going to get added gear, and they're going to be militarized. So, and that's going to disproportionately affect the African American community. And one big thing that a caller was talking about also, and in 2008, she ran a Republican campaign against Barack Obama. Right. So she ran a racist 3 a.m. ad, and that's not me saying that. That's Orlando Patterson, Harvard University. Orlando Patterson is a renowned sociologist. He said it had a racist sub-message, that 3 a.m. ad. She takes money from prison lobbyists. So in every one of my articles now, I try to mention it all the time. Hillary Clinton takes money from prison lobbyists. Now I'm explaining that's bad for the African American, Latino. That's bad for every community. That's bad for the white people too. It's bad for everybody. Right. Still, Hillary Clinton supporters do not address it, and I don't know why. They don't address the Iraq War. Well, it was a mistake. All right. Personal server, mistake. Right. Libya bombing. They don't even. Most Clinton supporters don't understand the repercussions of that. Now with her treatment of President Obama, or Barack Obama, before he was president in 2008, she ran a campaign that utilized racism. And so there's a Guardian article that I just quoted in the Killer Mike article, explaining that she, the Obama campaign said she used quote unquote dirty tricks, which was circulating a photo in the hopes of using Islamophobia to paint a picture that Obama wasn't Christian. So in terms of what Killer Mike did in Atlanta, it was, he's been such an amazing supporter of Bernie Sanders. Oh yeah, I'll let you go. Yeah.
1 second. Yeah, let's dissect, because you just gave us a whole lot, and you actually picked up something that the caller that I didn't catch when he mentioned, and he compared the fact that Dick Cheney was more comfortable with Hillary Clinton than he would be with Barack Obama, and that should tell everyone everything they need to know about Hillary Clinton. But people are so obsessed with her, they are completely willing to ignore all of her neoconservative ways, all of her neoliberal ways. It's funny how she can be both neoconservative and neoliberal economically, right? But they're completely oblivious, or are willing to ignore all of those traits, to the detriment of progressivism in general. We're at a pivotal time where America has been shifting to the right further and further and further. But now people are saying, well, we're okay with Hillary Clinton, even though Hillary Clinton is taking us further and further to the right. And the way I know this is because I don't know one person or one solid argument that Hillary Clinton has that is not to the right of Bernie Sanders. She has already made the decision that she's going to go to the right of Bernie Sanders and not try to be a true progressive, but beat Bernie Sanders from the right. Now, if that doesn't send a red flag to everyone who is listening and paying attention, they should realize that Hillary Clinton is just a Republican with a D in front of her, behind her name.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I agree with you 100%. In fact, in the article today, talking about what Killer Mike did, which was just, I mean, it's such an emotional and poignant and amazing and energizing introduction to Bernie Sanders, Killer Mike, when he introduced Bernie in Atlanta. In that article today, I quoted the president of Black Lives Matter in Boston. And when she was interviewed by NPR, she said that Hillary Clinton's racial justice record is, quote, abysmal. So that should speak volumes.
Yeah.
But also, you know, the reason I titled it today was I think the article, Killer Mike just won the White House for Bernie Sanders. When you look at turning points in a campaign, okay, I think that when the Black Lives Matter protested Bernie, that was good for the Bernie Sanders campaign. That's very good, because right after that he got a very comprehensive racial justice platform. Hillary Clinton does not have that. When you look at how Bernie has treated Black Lives Matter, he actually listens. The protests happened, and he was speaking with DeRay McKesson. He came out with a very, very comprehensive racial justice platform. When Hillary Clinton met with Black Lives Matter, she essentially chastised or lectured them and said, I don't believe in changing hearts. Well, okay. Well, what laws has Clinton changed? The only law she's changed to the detriment of the African-American community, the 1994 crime bill. So she's referring to that. That's a horrible example of laws being changed. So the only thing right now when you look at polls, and this is why I firmly believe Bernie Sanders will win, the only thing bolstering Clinton's campaign, because she's already given up on Iowa and New Hampshire, even though she won't tell you that. I mean, just, you know, not very long ago, about a couple weeks ago, Bernie Sanders was ahead of Hillary Clinton by a wide margin. Now these weird polls come out, only landline polls. If he wins, and I think that Bernie will win Iowa and New Hampshire, he's going to go into South Carolina, and non-white Democrats, African Americans, Latinos throughout the country are going to have a choice. When you give any human being, white, black, anybody, a choice, and you say, okay, here's a person, Hillary Clinton, who used racism against Barack Obama, and here's Bernie Sanders, who has a racial justice platform, who's been talking about demilitarizing the police and changing the war on drugs and all these things that disproportionately affect people of color and non-white Democrats. If you get that choice is a no-brainer, and people are going to choose Bernie Sanders. Like you said, that name recognition will disappear, and when more people realize that, hey, there's another choice aside from Hillary Clinton, they're going to vote for Bernie Sanders. I think that Bernie Sanders is going to win primarily because the non-white Democrats, the demographic that she's taking for granted is going to switch, just like Nina Turner did. She's a top Ohio Democrat, very influential. Ohio Democrat. And she switched from Clinton to Bernie. So
you know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking. I know all Bernie Sanders really has to do. It's good. He should have some surrogates go to African American churches and speak. But it'd be great if Bernie could in South Carolina go and speak at some African American churches. Hell, I mean, at this point, I'll go and do it for him because I'm behind Bernie Sanders 100% because I think people. I just have to reiterate this, Hal. I have to say this again. Hillary Clinton is a damn good Republican.
Yeah,
Hillary
pretty much.
She is the face. I'll predict this. If Donald Trump gets the nomination, that is the end of the Republican Party as we know it. And the politics of Hillary Clinton will become the politics. Now, she won't shift, right? She'll never shift over, but the positions and the moderate nature of the moderate right nature of Hillary Clinton, that will become the politics of the Republican Party, just so that they can remain a viable party if Donald Trump became the nominee this time and lost in a blaze of fire, right? So it's going to be a shift where Republicans are going to have to come back to some sensibility. And when you look at a sensible Republican, they look exactly like Hillary Clinton. They're aggressive on foreign policy. They are aggressive on neoliberal economic policies. They're in favor of Wall Street. You know, they're soft on social issues, so that they'll pass social legislation that is pretty liberal and pretty progressive, because that's just good for humanity. But you cannot distinguish Hillary Clinton from a Republican. I'm sorry. In many ways, you can barely distinguish President Obama economically from, you know, so it's this trend of Democratic presidents who carry out Republican economic policies that we're tired of at this point. And I think Hillary Clinton, she's already demonstrated that she's willing to go further to the right instead of embracing the progressive moment, which this is a moment for progressivism to be revitalized. She's decided that she's going to go to the right. And because of that, like, man, you know what? Tell the people I want you to do this for me. Tell the folks in Bernie Sanders' campaign that they don't even have to pay me. Just get me there and get me back home. I will go. I have a license. I have an ordination. I have my ordination papers. I'll go and stand in anybody's pulpit and help him win the black vote in South Carolina. Hey, let's take this call and see if there's any questions for you from this caller that I'm about to pull on the air. Caller 607, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and/or question?
What's up, man? This is Will from New York. I'll be a lot more respectable this time and not use the F-bomb. Like
no problem, Will. No problem at all, man. What's on your mind?
No, I know. My wife made me all paranoid about that. I was smoking a little bit last night. But so the problem that we're talking about is money in politics.
Right.
I mean, that's the root cause of this evil. And Bernie Sanders being the only candidate that actually talks about money in politics is the same reason why Lawrence Lessig wasn't allowed to actually debate, and the rules were changed like a week or two for eligibility for the debate cycle to keep him from speaking about money in politics. The only people that are supporting Hillary are people that aren't paying attention and maybe have name recognition with her, and people that love legal bribery. The insider Democrats like Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who actually worked for the Clinton campaign in 2008. And what you're seeing is 6 debates this cycle, where there were 27 the last Democratic cycle. 2 of them are on Saturday nights, and one of them is the Saturday before Christmas. I mean, that's the big issue to me. That just drives me nuts. They're trying to rig this in her favor. And Obama, you can go back Obama, you can go back Clinton, you can go back Bush, you can go back Reagan. Every politician, and especially now that Citizens United has happened and allows them to speak with money. I mean, that's like saying, hey, officer, I'm going to speak to you with thousands of dollars, and you look the other way. I mean, that's the problem. So, yeah, what are your comments on that? That's not really a question. It's more of a remark.
Hal, I'll let you tackle that one first. Go ahead.
No, I mean, I agree 100%.
I'm sorry. Actually, no. Actually, I have a guest on the line. He's going to answer your question for you.
Cool. Awesome.
Okay, hold tight. Go ahead, Hal. HA.
Well, I agree with the caller. And when you look at both campaigns, Bernie Sanders has 1 million donors, individual donors, the vast majority of whom give $50, $20, $10, something like that.
I can hear him on the phone. Let's talk about it.
Okay, you know what? Let me do something for you. 1 second. And you know what? You probably won't be. So you know what? Why don't you grab the response that he's going to give? Grab it off air. I don't have that one wired up, but I'll have it wired up the next time. Thanks so much for your call, man. Okay, go ahead and finish up with that. Response.
Well, when she was asked about her Wall Street donors, Ben, I don't know if you remember during the debate, what did she say? 9/11.
9/11.
Right? What does that have? What? 9/11? So 9/11 gave you money? Is that like what does that have to do with anything? So I mean, not only can you not trust Hillary Clinton, because really, I mean, 57% of Americans, according to CNN, do not trust Hillary Clinton. 55%, according to one poll, have an unfavorable view. So I don't think. I mean, if you ask me, I don't even think she beats Trump. And that's a whole other discussion. But because Bernie beats Trump by a much wider margin than Hillary Clinton in the general. But, when a person is asked about Wall Street ties.
And they say 9/11.
And they mention 9/11. that person should be nowhere near the White House. Okay, so that's much. I know.
That's decidedly the case. And, you know, I don't doubt Hillary Clinton's. Here's one thing I don't doubt about Hillary Clinton. I think Hillary Clinton is, like I said, she's a great Republican for one, but then two, I think she's a great status quo politician. And people need to ask themselves, if you love the way things are right now, like if right now is perfectly good for you, if you're okay with police brutality, if you're okay with 90% of the increases in wealth going to the top 1% and nothing coming to the bottom, if you're okay with that paradigm, then by all means vote for Hillary Clinton. But for those of us who are frustrated with that and want America to actually have the change that was originally promised by Barack Obama, we're still patiently waiting for that change, then you can't possibly vote for Hillary Clinton in good conscience, knowing full and damn well that she's going to keep everything exactly the same.
Well,
go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, in terms of funding, prison lobbyists fund her campaign. So, exactly. I mean, if this is a Black Lives Matter era in progressive politics, and you have the Democratic candidate, Hillary Clinton, who's funded by prison lobbyists,
right,
that's insane.
Yeah, exactly. Let's take this caller from 256. Caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and or question?
Hey Ben, this is Mike, Uppity Panthro on Twitter.
Mike,
I just calling in. Yeah, I'm just calling in to say hi and let you know you're doing a great job primarily.
Thanks,
and secondarily, I want to kind of dispute your point about the GOP changing if Trump gets the nomination. I mean, I think Trump, as you stated earlier, I think Trump has a chance to win. Especially if Hillary is the nominee on the Democratic side.
Okay.
That, to my mind, doesn't signal the end of the Republican Party as we know it, but I don't, well, maybe, of course, it's going to morph into something much worse than any of us thought, to my mind.
I don't know. I mean, and maybe this is maybe I'm too idealistic, and this maybe shows some naivete on my part, but I just can't imagine the Republican Party being able to cobble together enough ignorance and you know, I don't see them being able to get enough voters in that block. Now, I did have a caller a couple months ago who said that it's not just the bitter, it's not just the racist, but it's a lot of men who would be uncomfortable voting for a woman, so that plays against her. I have to go back and listen to some of my old tapes, because there was one caller, Adriana, I remember her name and not what she said, but essentially saying that that we shouldn't doubt the Trump coalition. Are you really believe that Trump could cobble together enough people to beat any Democrat? I mean, even Martin O'Malley.
While I'm loath to agree with Ann Coulter, the fear is what drives Republican Party, right? It drives people in general. That's the id we always talk about, the lizard brain, right? If anything else blows up anywhere in the white world, in the Western world, excuse my phrasing, in the Western, anything else blows up in the Western world between now and November 2016, we may be looking at some problems. I mean, that's just my honest opinion, because once people start getting scared, things go haywire, to say the least. Right. So I think that's one of the biggest parts of my point, is that we don't know what. Excuse me, I'm out shopping with my wife. She's getting in the car. We don't know what's going to transpire between now and then, and it's only going to help Trump drive fear if something else bad happens in the Western world.
Wow.
And I think we're underestimating what they can and cannot cobble together, because again, I don't want to go racial, but white folks who vote tribe. They absolutely, especially when they're scared. And I think we're underestimating. We really and truly are underestimating what fear can do once it's driven by somebody who's actually got the, I guess cojones is the word.
Yeah.
To talk to them in the language that they understand, like Trump is doing right now.
Wow.
I don't want to sound like a racist asshole, but I mean, this is what I honestly think. Excuse my French, but I honestly think that's what we're facing.
Wow.
Well, I can add one thing.
And I'll see you on Twitter.
All right. Thanks a lot for the call, Mike. Go ahead, HA.
Well, I'll just add that, okay, number one, all Trump has to say is, hey, you know what? You might not like me, but at least I could type an email without the FBI investigating me. So there's still an FBI investigation of Hillary Clinton's server and emails.
Right.
And the FBI just expanded that investigation. So, I mean, I've written about it. I know that a lot of Democrats, and I'm a lifelong Democrat, even though, you know, my detractors or whatever, people who don't like my writing say, oh, you know, da, da, da. I'm a lifelong Democrat, but I do not want a candidate who has anything to do with the FBI. So, and also, Donald Trump gave the Clinton Foundation $100,000.
Right.
And that's a fact. And he also helped Hillary Clinton during her Senate runs. So and then there's that picture of them at the wedding. So you're not really, like you said, Hillary Clinton is the best Republican that the Democrats could give us. So all Trump has to do, and he just said right now that Clinton's in the pocket of Wall Street. Mm-hmm. So the thing is, Trump is a buffoon. Okay, he's a buffoon, and he shouldn't be anywhere near the White House.
Right.
But the only chance he can get, Bernie Sanders will destroy Trump, absolutely destroy. But the only chance he can get is if he's up against Hillary Clinton, who nobody trusts, who is investigated right now by the FBI, and who progressives like me and you, we don't trust her. So he can go ahead and kind of like basically say, hey, you know what? I'm not, being investigated by the FBI. I gave her money.
Right. He can position it as though I own you, Hillary Clinton. I mean, I gave you $100,000. How's my money?
Exactly.
I'm not
exactly. Exactly.
That's a powerful line right there. Caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and or question? 646. You're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and or question?
Oh, I just tuned in. What's going on, Mr. Dixon? How's everything going with you tonight?
Everything is going great, man. I didn't catch your name.
Oh, my name is Granville.
Great. Oh, okay. Hey, man. Glad to have you on board. What's on your mind?
Fine. What you guys talking about? I just logged in. Are you talking about I apologize.
No problem. We're talking about Hillary Clinton. We're talking about the race between a possible matchup between her and Donald Trump. So if you want to, let me place you back on hold. Just listen into the conversation, and then I'll pull you back in about 3 minutes.
No problem.
All right. So here we go. Hal, HA. So here's a comment that somebody said in the chat room, and I want to read it out and see what you think about it. They said essentially, I want to find the right one because I think it hits it on the head. Dr. Sour Perp, great name, right? He said the thing is, Benjamin, that this is a moment between progressives versus fascists, and he has a huge fear that the fascists may win, and that's I think you put it in that I don't feel like the fascists will win, right? I don't feel that like that nativistic nature in Americans. I don't think that can win out, but you feel pretty confidently that Donald Trump will be able to beat Hillary Clinton.
Well, I'll say something a bit provocative, but if you talk about fascists from a foreign policy standpoint, then the fascists will be just fine with Clinton or Trump. So they already have their little candidate in the Democratic Party.
Right.
So if you're a fascist, you basically hedge your bets. You say, look, we got the Republicans. Now let's see if we can get a neoconservative Democrat.
Right.
So, I mean, and that's in the New York Times, there's a conservative historian. He's very well respected. Mm-hmm. And I quote him all the time. And he says that Hillary Clinton would have, quote, a neocon foreign policy, but her supporters will not call it that.
Right.
So in terms of fascism, really, I mean, aside from the racist element and the xenophobia, because a lot of what Trump says, and this is why he's such a buffoon, and this is why I don't like him, is that he utilizes that nativism, that hatred, that xenophobia to get votes. Now, honestly, I think he's probably smarter than that. Like, he probably knows that it's all a bunch of BS.
Yeah.
But he he's coming out of nowhere, and he totally blew Jeb Bush away and Rubio and everybody. And the reason he did is because he actually is he's insane enough to say these ridiculous, horrible things.
Even though he knows in his mind, he doesn't even believe half the stuff he says. He just knows.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. You couldn't run a business being that hate-filled, right? You couldn't, you couldn't run especially hospitality, but you couldn't run hotels, saying ridiculous things all the time. But if you're talking about the powers of a president, and this is when when I write about certain things, people don't really read sometimes, and they say, well, when the powers of the president are taken into account, specifically in terms of waging war. Now, President Obama didn't get authorization to spend $2.4 billion bombing and fighting ISIS, but he did so because of the authorization for use of military force. So he can do that without congressional approval, or at least tacit approval. If you give that power to Hillary Clinton, Lord knows what happens. And then when you combine perpetual wars with the history that she has using race to win, especially against Barack Obama, you're looking at even more militarized police. And just really quickly, I'll say this. Black Lives Matter is growing. It's a growing movement. Right. Okay. This election, there's two choices. Hillary Clinton will hurt the Black Lives Matter movement and basically take the momentum away if she's president, just because of what she's done in the past. If you want a Black Lives Matter movement to flourish, if you want a progressive movement, especially that takes into account real issues that Hillary Clinton is afraid to talk about, like, for example, she took 3 weeks not talking about Michael Brown's death and Ferguson. If you want somebody to address issues important to Latinos, blacks, non-white Democrats, you're going to vote for Bernie Sanders. Okay, because Bernie Sanders didn't use a 3 a.m. ad. He didn't use Islamophobia and racism against Barack Obama like Hillary Clinton did. And he's not funded by prison lobbyists.
Right.
So,
right.
I mean,
I agree with you. I agree with you. And sadly, I think I think we're up against an uphill battle. I think the momentum will take place after Iowa, after New Hampshire, the endorsement in South Carolina, or it was in Atlanta, but I think that's going to spill over to South Carolina. I think Bernie Sanders is going to give her a hell of a fight. I really, what would you tell guys on it? Go ahead, man.
I'll tell you what, real quickly. I think what Killer Mike did the other night was just really epic. I think what Cornel West is doing is just unbelievable. He helped Barack Obama win. I think he'll be 2 for 2 in terms of presidents, Dr. West will be. Okay, because I really think, and the conventional wisdom, Ben, I don't know if you invested in stocks in 2000 or 2008, but if you did, I used to be a financial advisor long ago. Okay, if you did, then you know that they're going to pump up a stock. Enron was a strong buy. Okay. All these failed companies were strong buys. They eventually came crashing down. So I actually think that Bernie Sanders will not only surprise and do better than expected, I think that he will win the primaries, he'll win the presidency, because when it comes down to voting that day, whether you're black, white, Latino, Asian, doesn't matter where, if you have that choice and you're a Democrat, you're going to choose Bernie Sanders. So, I mean, you're going to choose.
If they know what's best for them. I mean, if they're serious about getting America back on track, that would be their choice. But if they're serious about just supporting Hillary Clinton because they like Hillary Clinton for whatever reason, then they probably won't make that choice. And that's what we're up against here, man. H.A., listen, man, thanks so much for stopping by and spending as much time as you did with us. We definitely want to have you back. Tell everyone how they can get in touch with you.
It's just hagoodman.com and H.A. Goodman, author on Twitter. And Ben, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Hey, my pleasure, man. Ladies and gentlemen, Hal Goodman, H.A. Goodman, friend of the show. I'll definitely cut this one up and so that we can put it out there separately, because I think there's a lot of good things in here that we definitely need to spread and share with as many people as possible.
Thank you so much, Ben.
Hey, my pleasure. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I have to grab all these calls. and actually I lost one. 1 second. Let's do that. Just send a message. Okay, so I lost one, but I have this one here. Caller, what's your name, comment, and or question?
Hey, Ben, how's it going? It's Patrick from Miramar. How you doing?
Doing good, man. How's it going?
I'm doing great. I actually had a question for Hal, but I'm sorry I missed them. But this is a question that I've been thinking about for a while. And this is not because I'm a Bernie supporter. I'm just speaking overall for the long-term viability of Black Lives Matter. So that 10 years from now, they're still here, 20 years from now. Just from my brief political experience, it seems to me that political power, truly, as a organization, comes from your ability to mobilize voters. This is why the unions are so influential in the Democratic Party. It's not just their staunch stance or take, and not just them handing out pamphlets to members, it's actually pushing folks to the polls. And on election day, it's actually going knocking door to door.
Right.
And I fear that Black Lives Matter is
missing out on that
for the moment, because this is their first time in existence during an election cycle.
Right.
And if they don't show their ability to mobilize voters, even if they endorse O'Malley, and they can increase O'Malley's Black support from 1% to 10%,
right,
they've shown themselves to be effective.
Right.
And I will continue their political power. And I'm afraid by not endorsing someone, even if it's Hillary, I wouldn't like it, but at least they can demonstrate that I endorsed you and I brought a higher percentage than you would normally get from my endorsement. That gives them long-term viability. I'm afraid by not endorsing anyone, they might fade away like Occupy Wall Street. So I want to get your thoughts on that.
Absolutely. And Hal, if you're still listening in and you want to chime in on this, you could either dial back in or just hit us on YouTube with some replies. But you hit a very good point, Patrick, because in these pseudo intellectual circles, and I hate to call it that as a pejorative, but once it sounds smart to say that I'm not Democrat, I'm not Republican. It makes you sound smart, right? Or to say I'm not a progressive, I don't subscribe to those labels. I'm not a progressive, I'm not a conservative. I'm just, I'm pro-black, and all those things sound smart, but they ultimately neuter you. They neutralize you, because this political system doesn't care about how smart you are. This political system only cares about how many votes can you get together for your ally, whoever you're aligned with. And if you neuter yourself before an election, then they have no need for you after the election, or they have no spoils to give you after an election, right? Because truthfully, they don't need anybody after an election, but it's just time for them to reward everyone that helped them and to give them whatever they promised. So if Black Lives Matter stays completely out of this and they don't endorse somebody, then yeah, they will go the way of Occupy Wall Street, because they did not hold somebody or help somebody get into an elected office. They're not utilizing their vast political capital that they have garnered over the last year. They have a lot of political capital that they can move the dial for Bernie, for Hillary, for O'Malley. Hell, they can move it for Donald Trump if they wanted to. I know they wouldn't, but if they don't utilize it, then they absolutely waste it. And I think that's, unfortunately, I think that's the way it's going to go, because they're more interested, and I can't say this categorically, but from what I've seen and what I've gathered, I think the brand of Black Lives Matter is more interested in sounding intellectual with themselves and amongst each other than actually utilizing the raw strength and political capital that they have gathered over the last over the last year. So unfortunately, I think it's going to happen the way you're describing it, Patrick.
And I'll be real quick. The reason why I said that, because I genuinely was stumped. I couldn't believe that a criminal justice forum, which is the seminal issue of Black Lives Matter, the sole reason for their existence, not hosted by some rinky-dink mom and pop organization, by the largest Black media outlets that Hillary Clinton's son the surrogate. I genuinely could not understand that. So I was thinking about it. Is it because she knows there's not an endorsement waiting in the balance? That was my only thing I could think of, and I'll just listen to you on YouTube. But thanks for taking my call, man.
No problem at all, man. Thanks so much for your call, and definitely call back anytime. And to the caller I lost, please dial back in 857-600-0518. I had a glitch on this computer on the left hand side. Oh, well, you can't tell what side my computer is on, but I absolutely agree with you, Patrick, on that one, that it really is. if you don't use your political capital, you're useless. Which this is going to be a good segue, and it's political or it's nothing. You're either changing the system through politics, or you're just criticizing, and you're just protesting, and you're just shouting. Because everything that we need changed in this system must be changed from a political perspective. Every problem that that you're marching about must be changed from a political perspective. Which is why when people bring up the issue, you know, before I even get into that, because I want to talk about the shooting of Laquan, McDonald, and everyone who's saying, well, what about black on black crime? I want to deal with that in a second, but I want to get this caller. Caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and or question?
Hello?
Yes, sir. You're live on the air.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is Granville again.
Sorry about, I lost your call, man. What's on your mind? What's on your mind?
Oh, no, you was about to get into the topic about Laquan. I forgot. DeQuay is his last name, the one in Chicago.
McDonald, yeah, Laquan McDonald.
I actually visited Chicago this past summer, and when you speak to people from that area, I'll be honest with you, Mr. Dixon, that whole system over there has to be gutted from the top down, from the mayor's office to the police. It's like they have this history of this barbaric culture where corruption is cool by law enforcement. I mean, you got to think about it. They got a restaurant named after Al Capone in downtown, in the downtown area, which is baffling. But you know, when people say, "What about black on black crime?" They're just really ignoring the systematic institution of racism that this country is built on, from black and brown people, whether it's the genocide of Native Americans to building financial institutions from African slave labor, and trying to tell you ignore it. And because for the mere fact, there's so many people there's generations of people that's disenfranchised right now because of it.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
When I
go ahead.
No, and when I see somebody like Donald Trump using Adolf Hitler's point of view, and people don't think that's scary, talking about people having special IDs. Yeah. Telling people like, oh, if they protest, they should be able to be roughed up.
Yeah. It's all part of one. It is all part of one bigger narrative that's happening in America right now today. It's what are we going to tolerate? What are we going to put up with? And what are we going to allow to continue before people actually speak up and do something about it? Granville, man, thanks so much for that call and that point of view. I absolutely agree with you on that one, man. Thanks so much for the call.
No problem, brother.
Which brings me exactly back to the Laquan McDonald shooting. And people who say, you know, what about black on black crime? And I wanted to get to the Bill O'Reilly clip, and I probably will, but let me tie these two pieces together. With Black Lives Matter, either it's going to be political or it's going to be nothing. All the results that we want, all the results that you need, and all the results that you're shouting and protesting for are affected by the political system. So if you're not going to get engaged in the political process, then you have absolutely neutralized your ability to get any change based on what you say you want changed. So for them to not endorse when they have the political capital to endorse, I think it neutralizes them from being effective as they possibly can. And I know everyone is like, you know, it's too early. Maybe they shouldn't endorse because they don't want to get on the bad side of one candidate, but you have to flex your muscle. You have to demonstrate how powerful you really are. You're not powerful because you can get people at a rally. You're powerful because you can get Rahm Emanuel out of office. As Granville, the last caller, said, it needs to be changed from top to bottom. So if you're going to protest, you guys need to go shut down Chicago until Rahm Emanuel steps down. Flex your power, flex your muscle, your political muscle. And you'll see one or two things will happen. Rahm Emanuel will sit down, or Rahm Emanuel's true colors will come out, and you'll see the dictator that he is, the guy that shut down 24 schools in the poorest and the most underserved communities. You'll see the type of tyrant that he really is, the one who fought to keep this video suppressed for the last year so that he can get reelected. And then all of a sudden, he sounds so compassionate about the video and about the wrongdoing. You know, flex your political power. Maybe you don't start with a presidential election right now, but you got to start flexing your political power, or else you're just in the streets protesting. Now, this is directly connected to all the people who are saying, what about black on black crime? What about this? Here's the thing. And why don't you go and protest the black on black crime? Do people realize that protests are a political tool? The entire purpose of protesting is to petition the authorities, to petition the government, to petition the people who have the legitimate authority over you. You don't protest and petition criminals. Well, there might be criminals in office, but you protest and petition the office. You protest and petition the president, your congressman, your governor, your mayor. You protest a political structure because you want that political structure to change. So for everyone who's saying, well, why aren't people out here protesting and marching for Tyshawn Lee? You know what? People are out there being active, trying to stop the violence. But who are they going to go march against? Are they going to march and protest the Crips? I know Crips are probably not in Chicago. I think it's a different gang in Chicago, but you know what I mean, right? Are they going to protest the drug lords? Protests are a political tool. So just like you would not protest a gang because there's no political concessions that you can extract from a gang, you must also be politically active against the institutions that you're protesting. Just like it makes absolutely no sense for you to start and have a march to protest against the drugs in the gangsters in your neighborhood, right? It makes no sense to protest and march and not convert that into political capital. None whatsoever. I mean, but that's just too rational, right? Sometimes it's just, I don't know, man, the rational thing. It's political or nothing, man. It's either you are going to be politically active or not active at all. And actually, I've said my piece. I'm not even going to give Bill O'Reilly the airtime. I've said everything I want to say about Bill O'Reilly in the sense that they really are, they're showing their true colors at this point, where they cannot stand the fact that here is clear, concrete evidence of how brazenly easy it was for this police officer to kill Laquan McDonald. They couldn't talk about it. So instead, what they did was deflected and talked about two horrible cases where black men killed a white woman and tried to kill another white man in New Orleans, different sides of things. They had to focus on something that could keep their audience from ever realizing that maybe there is a problem. So instead of letting that seed be planted into their rabid right base, they decided to go full fear mode and using language like, I said I wasn't going to play it, but maybe I am going to play it. Maybe I am going to play it. Actually, no, because Fox News is tripping. Fox News is doing a lot of copyright. They're using the copyright infringement on YouTube to shut down channels. So I'm not going to play it. I'll describe it. They're using language such as the black guys who attacked this poor white woman, and white people are being attacked by black people, and young black men are social problem. They're using this type of language to strike fear in the hearts of their listeners, because as long as their listeners can be afraid, they will never take the time to look at the fact that there may actually be a systemic problem. It reminds me of a debate I was having with a conservative friend of mine on Twitter this morning. He never replied back, and I'm going to have to assume, because he didn't reply back, that maybe he finally heard something that I was saying, that I finally exposed him to a truth that maybe all of the noise previously prevented him from hearing. Do you guys think that it's possible that if these conservatives, the ones that are ostensibly reasonable, if they just finally hear and see the truth laid out, that they can possibly break away from the rabid propaganda that is spewed and they're incessantly fed? Because I sent him, he was using a quote about 90-something million Americans being out of work. And it took me 2 seconds to debunk it, because I already know that talking point, right? We know that figure includes young people who are too young to work and old people who are too old to work, right? That figure is conflated, but but it's used in conservative circles to make them believe that our economy is doing worse now than what it did underneath George W. Bush, when in actuality, the economy is far better. But they believe these talking points, they believe these lies, this propaganda, so much so. And if there's ever, I think, if there's ever a crack in the armor of this propaganda, that maybe they actually can see the light. Or am I just being naive and we just need to crush them all? Yes, Michael Solomon, they did. It wasn't until Dr. King started talking about economic equality that they killed him. They didn't kill Dr. King over. I'm answering questions out of YouTube at this point, folks. They didn't kill Dr. King because of the Civil Rights Act. It wasn't until he was trying to bring the Economic Bill of Rights. And that's when he was killed. The poor man's campaign. Fear is the main agenda of propaganda. In all my life, I've never seen so much powerful propaganda in the USA. I agree. I've never seen this type of propaganda on this level. And I'm not as young as I used to be. Fritz Carl, yes, you're absolutely right. It was a Democratic establishment mayor who helped cover up the crime by not allowing this video to be released for over a year. I said it yesterday. I will say it again. Status quo, establishment, Democrats are more dangerous to every community, but particularly the Black community, than Republicans can ever be, because Black people's alarms will go off if Republicans do something shisty against them. But they generally give Democrats a pass. And that's why Bill Clinton was able to shove welfare reform down the throats of all Americans, hurting all Americans, but particularly hurting the impoverished Black community. Because if George H.W. or George W. had done that, well, hell, it would have been, we would have tore, rhetorically, we would have tore shit down rhetorically, right? Because it would have been seen for what it was. It would have been seen as an attack on the poorest among us. Establishment Democrats, status quo Democrats, are just as dangerous, if not more dangerous, to the impoverished, to minorities, to the marginalized as any Republican would ever be. And so, yes, in Chicago, it is an establishment, status quo Democrat who's been running the city for the last, about 4 years now, going into his 5th year. And then there was an establishment Democrat before that. Corruption is not unique to Republicans. Racism is not unique to Republicans. Forget about it. Let me read another question. Poverty causes crime. Will says poverty causes crime. Hard to pull up from your bootstraps when you have no bleep boots. Absolutely agree. Crime is overwhelmingly an economic paradigm. It's an economic construct. People are engaged in crime because of their economic plight, and for economic gain. We've seen studies. There was a study by, I believe it was Duke. I don't want to misquote, but there was a study that demonstrated that the more impoverished an area was, the more crime you had in that area, and the less impoverished it was, the less crime you had in that area. it's just it's a common thing. So if you want to talk about black on black crime, then fine. You need to talk about why you think that is. Why do you think that young black men disproportionately commit crime? Do you think it's possibly because young African Americans have an unemployment rate of 51%? Or do you think it's because they're black? See, that's what people like Bill O'Reilly and Fox News will never go over into, because you can't talk about the problems facing the black community and the problems facing poor white communities and poor Hispanic communities without talking about the economic factors that contributed to that crime rate. You can't. But they want to leave it comfortably in that place where all they do is lay it at the feet of black people and say, oh, these young black people are a problem. Why? This is why I want to debate Bill O'Reilly. I would debate Bill O'Reilly tonight. I want to debate Bill O'Reilly because he always leaves it there. I want to ask Bill O'Reilly this, and maybe I shouldn't because I don't want to give him a heads up, not as though he's going to watch this. But tell me why you think that is, Bill O'Reilly. Do you think that is something that is native, that is intrinsic in blackness that causes young black men? Do you think it's because they're black? If the answer is no, then you have to explore the reasons why. And one of the number one reasons for crime in any country, in any community, in any ethnicity, in any race is economics. All right, one more thing. Obama has said he's disturbed by the Laquan video, yet he has never done anything to rein in his buddy Rahm Emanuel. The establishment always protects its own. Absolutely. And I'll applaud that because Barack Obama is establishment. He was an establishment when he ran, but he made the mistake of bringing Rahm Emanuel in as his chief of staff. And Rahm Emanuel is as establishment as they come. Rahm Emanuel probably could have been the Speaker of the House before. If I hadn't thought about it, I could have said her name, Nancy Pelosi. He could have been the Speaker of the House if he had not stepped aside and went to be the chief of staff. He is as establishment as they come. And so by Barack Obama picking Rahm Emanuel, that converted his hope and change into Democratic establishment, period. All right, let's read a couple more questions and then get out of here. Omi, I don't know how to pronounce this. I'll read this. Let me see if I can read this verbatim. The problem is that people are too dumb. They continue to blame other people. Oh, they are racist, lazy, violent, blah, blah, blah. Having people realize only the people of color who are labeled this way. Yeah, I think I get you. I think I get what you're saying. Yeah, I agree. All right, folks. Let's see. Got a piece awesome. Boom. Okay. All right. So I'm thinking I'm going to take tomorrow night off. Why not? Right? It's a holiday. I might as well take the night off. So unless you guys protest, unless you protest, I'll take tomorrow night off and I'll see you guys back on Monday. Listen, over this holiday, you can support the Benjamin Dixon Show by in the links in the description on Spreaker and on YouTube. Click on the Amazon button. If you're going to participate in capitalism, you might as well support a show that's going to unpack capitalism and try to help reform it to be better for everyone. So click on that Amazon link, spend all your money on Amazon, and I think I get like 4% or something. You know, basically you're buying me lunch, and I appreciate it. If you like the Benjamin Dixon Show, go to patreon.com/the BPD Show and consider becoming a Patreon for $1 a month, $5 a month. Hell, you could even do $500 a month. Anyway, last but not least, thanks for everyone who subscribed yesterday to the blog. Go over to the BenjaminDixonShow.com and sign up for our blog. I'll start sending things out after December. I'll start having a regular blog come out to you at least once a week. And I'm also going to send out a free chapter of my book, God is Not a Republican, chapter 12, talking about the conservative religion. I'm packaging that up as an individual book, and anyone who's on my mailing list, you'll get that as a gift from me just because you're cool like that. And I really appreciate it. All right, folks, I'm going to start cooking. I'm going to get up and start cooking and watch some TV with the kids and try to take the rest of the night. You guys have been great. Remember scary immigrants that Happy Turkey Day. Remember scary immigrants that might take over are the reason we celebrate. Hey, you guys are the best. I'll see you on Monday.
And until that moment comes, when we, the Americans, are able to accept the fact that on that continent we are trying to forge a new identity for which we need each other, that I am not a ward of America. I am one of the people who built the country. Until this moment.
And we are brothers. It's not a question of Jews or Christians or Muslims. We're all in the same boat.
We need each other.
Love is a condition so powerful. It may be that which holds the stars in the firmament.
Until this moment.
Love.
Until this moment.
Love.
Until this moment.
I come to you today to say that we can build a newer and better nation. I say we can do so, that we must do so, and that we will do so.
You've tuned in to The Benjamin Dixon Show. Visit us online at www.thebenjamindixonshow.com.
So you get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.